Joined now by Blazer assistant coach Kim Hughes. And, Coach, in our last segment, we were talking about Tone's proficiency to sometimes fall asleep in movie theaters during movies because it's so dark and comfortable and everything. But you and I have talked about sleep before. You are not a long sleeper, and you're not a great sleeper, and yet I never see you that tired during the day. I don't know where you get the energy that you have. But how many hours a night would you estimate you sleep?
Probably 3.
Wow.
But I think it's more genetic because my daughter, when she was younger, we were talking about Dale's new daughter, Jensen, how she sleeps through the night. And I said, well, my daughter never slept more than 4.5 hours ever, and she still doesn't. I think some people just can operate with more time being awake, and I think, to me, it's an advantage. So I'm not sure it's a disadvantage. I can watch a lot more tape and things like that. So I think it's an asset rather than any kind of demise.
No, as long as it doesn't bother you.
Yes.
But I look at you on the plane. Everybody else is snoozing away, and you're right there watching more tape. So you're right. You're getting more done over the course of the day if you only need 3
Maybe
hours
that's
of sleep.
just me. Maybe I'm so boring I put them all to sleep. I'm not sure.
Well, Coach, obviously a tough loss last night to that Laker team. But, over the course of a 48-minute game, if you take away probably the first 8 minutes of that game, Blazers were able to get some things done. But that first 8 minutes was a very difficult stretch for the team.
It was a tough loss for me. It was my scout, and I think you take it more personally. But what bothered me was we talked about coming out with energy. We talked about the fact that they're not a good defensive team, and if we guard, we'll be fine. And I thought our energy was second worst of the season, right behind the Philly game. Because in the Philly game, I think it was almost 3/4 of bad basketball in terms of energy. Last night was really the first quarter, perhaps the first 8 minutes, and that it bothered me. And we outscored them the other 3 quarters, but we can't afford to make mistakes if we're trying to get a top 4 seed. And to me, that's important. And I think at this time of the year, the games become so much more important. I don't think we can throw games like that away. That one will really hurt.
Coaches get asked this question all the time. Are you perceptive enough to look at the guys in the locker room or watch them warm up and have any good feel as to what kind of game you think you're going to get from them?
Usually, no. Usually I don't have a clue. But I thought last night, our attention to detail wasn't as good as it needs to be. I thought our energy in the pregame workouts weren't as good, but I've also seen us do the same thing and come out really aggressively. The thing that bothered me is we haven't talked about it. We haven't worked on it in practice was our transition defense, and I think that's just hard work. The stats, according to the people along half court last night, said 32 fast break points. We calculated as 38, but either number was just unacceptable, and we're not going to be able to win if we give teams that many fast break points.
Well, Coach, in a game like that, it seems like it almost seems like you're set up to fail because there was no way the Lakers were not going to try to get that many fast break points. I think Mike D'Antoni and his staff has realized if they don't try to run the score up and make it an ugly, super fast, hyper-paced game, they don't have a chance to win.
You're right. That was a playoff game for them. They played with high energy. They played with intensity, and their guys made shots. But, we've got to expect that this time of year. We're not going to sneak up on anybody, and for quite a few teams that aren't tanking it in the NBA this year, we're going to get their best shot. And D'Antoni's under some stress for winning games, and he doesn't know if he'll be there next year. And it was a situation where they played terrific with high energy, and they played the way we need to play every night.
Besides the energy factor, what was also puzzling, the best free throw shooting team in the league had trouble in that respect. The best free throw shooter on the best free throw shooting team unexpectedly misses 3 out of 4. You go through phases of the game. You had 1 turnover, I think, the third quarter. Maybe it was 1 turnover the second, and 2 the third. But the bookend quarters, the first and the fourth, were some of the wildest cross court. Almost like what was somebody seeing? Some of the turns. So it's sometimes puzzling. You get to this stage of the season and you almost think you're past some of these things, and I guess this is why you guys always go over the fundamentals all the time because they're never out of season, and you find out that you can get to games in the 60s of a season and still perhaps have some fallback in certain situations that you really even don't expect sometimes.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's why you've got to teach every day. I was looking at the game, trying to analyze it last night, I stayed at the arena for a really long time. I couldn't let the game go. And, not only was it the turnovers, but we gave up 8 offensive rebounds the first quarter, and we didn't make free throws. We're 11 of 19, I think. That was our worst of the year. So we had everything possible that we could do poorly. We did, especially in that first quarter. And even in the third quarter, I think we shot 11 of 29. We got outshot. In the fourth quarter, we got outshot by the Lakers, but we outscored them each quarter because our energy was good. So sometimes I can deal with bad shooting. That's not an issue for me because, the shot comes and goes. If the guys compete, I don't mind. So I liked what we did the second, third, and fourth quarter. I did not like what occurred in the first, and I thought a lot of times some of those passes were pretty casual, and I think we have to start looking inwardly and start thinking we can't make casual passes. Each possession's too important at this point. So we've got to clean it up, and we will. And the players have to accept that. But we were so good at the start of the year making the extra pass or the extra 2 passes. Everybody in the league talked. The other coaches would mention that to us, and nobody's telling me that anymore. We've got to get back to that because that's our forte. When we move the ball, when we're unselfish, we're a lot stronger. We're never going to be great defensively. We're much better than people think, and we work on it all the time, so we will get better. But we really have a good group of guys that have good chemistry in terms of sharing the ball, making the right play, and we've kind of strayed from that a little bit in, say, the last month or so. But we can certainly get it back.
Coach, it's interesting. I was talking to a group of fans before one of the games recently, and they were asking me about the slide that the team had been on prior to this last homestand. And my response to them was, you have to have an understanding of the way an NBA season plays out. And in my book, and I learned this from Coach Dunleavy when he was here, he broke the season down for me into thirds. He said there's 27 games to start, there's 27 in the middle, and then there's a final 28. And in the first 27 games, you establish an identity. You basically say, hey, we're a playoff team. We're not a playoff team. We're a team to be reckoned with, or we're not a team to be reckoned with. That second 27 games, it's important that you maintain. You don't necessarily have to keep winning, but you have to at least maintain your position as a team. And then the final 28, you want to make that push for playoff seeding. And I thought it was a great way to look at an NBA season over an 82 games and break it down and make it something, into smaller pieces. But one of the things that he talked about was just going 500 over that middle 27 games. People started to get a little worried because the Blazers had lost some of that luster, but they certainly seem to have gotten it back the last, since that 54-game mark.
I agree. I worked with Coach Dunleavy for 8 years, and he taught me a lot. And the year we went to the playoffs and almost made the conference finals, we started off the same way we had with Coach Stotts. Started off really strong, surprised a ton of teams, and we really focused on jumping out to a quick start. And even if we went 500 the rest of the way, we're in the playoffs, and that's all we need to do. Just get in the playoffs, because the Clippers had never done that before for so long. And the same thing here. The season is so long. It's such a grind. It's too much to evaluate for the whole season. So we take five-game increments and try to do it that way. But you can't approach it for the whole season. And, the reality is we won 11 games in a row earlier. Maybe we weren't that good to win 11. And right now when we've struggled, and I don't think we're struggling now, but we went through a struggle earlier, maybe we're not as bad as people think we are. I think we're somewhere in between. But I know we're a good team. And I know we can recoup the chemistry that we had before. I'm not worried about that, but we still have to put in the work. We've got to stay healthy. We've got to keep preaching and being positive and teaching, and the guys have to stay together and we'll be fine. I think we just have to do what made us successful before. Don't forget it, reiterate it, and you got to move on from a loss like this, but we still have to mourn it for a while. I mean, this may take a full day. I mean, this is the kind of loss that it should hurt. There's no reason why it shouldn't, but we just have to think about Atlanta now, and we have to make sure we get that. It makes a very, very important game because we have a very, very important road trip after that. I'm not going to discuss any of the teams. I want to be like Coach Stotts. I've heard his routine. I'm not going to discuss any of those teams. I think we're playing 5 games on the road. I don't know. I think we're going south, but I don't want to discuss it.
We've often heard the statement that sometimes you don't fully know a player or maybe can appreciate a player until you have the chance to work with them on a day-to-day basis. Would you put Robin Lopez in that category? I think everybody felt good about getting him from New Orleans at the start of the season, giving this team the rim protector that it didn't have last season. But has he, in your mind, exceeded everybody's expectations in terms of how well he's fit in and maybe even how much more talented a player than maybe the whole world gave him credit for?
Without question. I think all those things apply. I don't think you know how you can judge a player until you see him under times of duress. Everybody can be a nice guy. Everybody can do it when things are going well. I like to see the test of a player's mettle when things aren't going well. And Robin is terrific. I mean, occasionally he'll give you that stare that scares people when the referees make an improper call, which they can occasionally. And he is so funny the way he stares at the referee or the way he glares. But Robin's energy, Robin's toughness, his craziness have all had such an impact on our team and the other team, because not a lot of the guys on the team want to penetrate to the hoop because they know he'll protect the rim and he'll sacrifice his body. He'll put his body on you and knock you down if he has to. That's not a problem for him.
Is he a throwback coach?
He's old school. He could have played, back when you're allowed contact. I think the league is too friendly now. It drives me crazy how you can't have contact. He would have been great back then because he can take a blow and he can take it, he can dish it, and he doesn't have a problem. He gets fouled so many times on offensive tip-ins. They hit his arm and stuff, and he plays through. He's a battler. He's one of those guys that gives you so much energy, and he plays with such a passion for the game. It's terrific.
So lastly, Coach, what can you tell us about Atlanta? Pretty odd to get this deep into a season and be playing a club for the first time, but that'll be the case tomorrow as you take on a Hawks team that is trying to stay afloat in that Eastern Conference. They're under 500, but all that means is they're right in the mix for a good playoff spot. The way things go in that
it is strange. I haven't experienced this late. I'll get to see an old friend in Elton Brand who's lost a lot of skill level, athleticism, but still knows how to play, and he's a good friend of mine. He's a good man. But, he's not going to present a lot of problems at the defensive center position. He's lost so much quickness and stuff with his Achilles tendon surgery and just age. But he's a great teammate. He just does all the dirty work. He'll compete till his dying breath. And it was great working with him, and I admire him. And he'll be a challenge because he can hit that 15-footer, face-up jumper. He's a lot like Robin Lopez. You can hit him in the face. You can knock him down. He never shows pain. He will not show any weakness. And, that's kind of what their team is. They're struggling. I think they've lost 9 of 10, and they've had some injuries with Horford out. And they have some skilled guys in Korver who we thought the Lakers can shoot. He can really shoot it. Shooting almost 50% from three, really quick trigger. He's going to be a challenge for us because they won't fast break like the Lakers did to us, and we had some trouble in the game with our wings not running back from the deep corners. But I'm sure if they saw that tape, they're going to think that's going to be one of the things they're going to try to do against us. And our challenge is to, be efficient on the offensive end, but when the shot goes up, we got to sprint back. Offensive mindset ends right there. Then we got to get back on D, and I think we will. It's been a good team that way in terms of being mature enough to know we've got to get this done. I mean, everybody in our locker room knows that was a tough loss, and nobody wants to go through that experience again. And you have those in the NBA. I mean, it just happens. Who knows why, but it's not a good feeling.
Coach, thank you so much for the visit. I would say get some rest, but you don't need any. So you'll be fresh tomorrow regardless of how much sleep you get tonight, and I know you're putting in the time to make sure that this is a better result tomorrow night against the Hawks before we head out for those 5 games against whoever they are coming up after tomorrow. But have a good night, and we'll look forward to seeing you here at the Moda Center tomorrow.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Blazer assistant Kim Hughes, good man, and he'll be ready, as will hopefully the team tomorrow night for the Atlanta Hawks.